instead of caring about ghosts in a bit of, formulating our big R, I want to yield to Karl Popper's wisdom, which proposes that we should focus on the small R, the human reason, which encourages the intake of scientifically sourced theory in bits, such that we are not dealing with big theories that cannot be tested, that we are not willing to test. And remember, even an historical figure who I will mention later in later videos advise us to test all things and hold on to the truth. Test. We have been enjoined to test even other worldly ideas, and not just throw hands up and say that we are humans. We cannot understand. Why? Because otherworldly ideas too, so far it emerges in the material world, it is designed to serve the material world. And what we should be concerned about is designing our small r to fit into the big R, meaning that we focus on the technological part of the whole idea, such that it draws its principles from overall bigger idea. And our big idea, the big R, should be a reflection of the supreme R, which is now beyond the material reality. Now, ideally, for success to be attained, the bigger should be superimposed. If we think of it as a form of graph, should superimpose on the supreme R. But then, for a lot of reasons, one of which is the dimensional inequality, we know that there would be a lot of errors. We cannot fully understand these ideas of God. But then we should have designed our big ideas to be closest possible to the godly idea at every time, such that we can draw the small r bit by bit to be in consonance with the big idea of ours, the big R of ours. Now, remember, we have said that we are not going to focus all too much on the big R, not less on the supreme R, but then on the small R, we are able to draw from it. And I want to say that for different nations of the world, the similarity, the ability to superimpose their big R on the supreme R determines success. But then, what makes it a little dicey is that even the big R can be intentionally diversified, to acceptable degree, to satisfy the peculiarities of each nation. For example, we all know what system is ideal and best, but for some reasons which are peculiar to different situations at different times, so there could be this difference and some allowance for disparity. Okay. In the words of Karl Popper, technological approach imposes a discipline on our speculative inclination, for it forces us to submit our theories to definite standards of clarity and practical testability. If we go by the big R all the time, we will become, there is risk of becoming superstitious, of going with the wrong narrative. And when we go with the wrong narrative for the big idea, there is no going back. It is more difficult to reflect and change. But then when we focus on the small how, the little principles, step by step, we take from it. Number one, it allows us to employ some form of empiricism to be able to question and verify for each time each of those little principles. And when we do it day by day, we are able to become more confident in the big how. So it would not be, even though we are drawing the whole principle, the big principle, we're making it to reflect the supreme principle of creation. Our smaller principle, which we draw from the big principle, we draw it to answer to specific problems per time. And this is what Charles Cossey seems to be saying in his book, How Now Shall We Live? That when there is a principle or an a candidate supreme how, that we should test it. It should not. It should be tested too for its utility in the material world. Now, he said we should test it with 3 questions. Number 1, how does it explain the problem at hand? How does it explain the problem at hand? Number 2, how does it address the problem? And thirdly, is it something we can live with? Meaning, is it practicable? Is it reasonable? These are 3 questions we will answer with moderate sufficiency in the course of our discussion here. So we need to note that our artificial reason, the small r, is smaller in importance to the supreme reason, the big R. What we infer from this is that the reason, big R, of all countries ideally should be in unity, and there can be no deviation from the ultimate truth. Real life situation, however, prove otherwise. That is why we allow some form of deviation to satisfy the reality of each time. We can begin to cite other examples from, like, for example, when they say there is on Sabbath, you cannot walk. But then we see that you can also walk due to if some situations permit it, and if there is necessity for it. This does not mean that the supreme principle has changed. Rather, but if you understand that the material world, that the supreme power aloof and on its own, the material world trying to reflect it in with prioritizing its own needs per time. So the big R is in truth equivalence of the supreme R, the knowledge of which we cannot presume for reasons that it is different dimensions. It cannot be falsified the way we can falsify science and history. We are now reduced to searching for the closest option, the big R, by which we can live. We tailor our big R to reflect the supreme R so that we can live by the big R. What makes a nation to be greater than another, I suppose, is how close their big R is to the supreme R. Then we must have noticed from this that the big R of different nations and the prayer of creation allows for subjectivism. Like we are saying that, all right, if we say that we have liberty to tweak some elements that we observe in the supreme R for the purpose of designing our, does it mean that there is no objective supreme R? No, that is not what it means. In ideal situation, the big R should be equal to the supreme R, But we also recognize that such situations must be rare. Our best effort as a nation would only yield a big R that is of considerable equivalence to the supreme R. So now the big R, the supreme R could be that a certain model of democracy is right, but then for some other local factors, the big R can be designed in sufficient equivalence to the supreme R in a way that suits the local population. So we do not, by all of this, we do not propose that national decision be made directly by the laws of nature. No, we assert that our mind should be in the thinking mode of the creation, of the creator of creation. Should be in the thinking mode of the intelligent designer. That the language of our mind should be more of science than superstition. What this helps us to do is to have belief in our own principles, because if we continue to draw ideas out of the air from our own biases, from erroneous history, from poor inferences, we'll continue to slack in implementation of our public policies. And that is exactly what James Lancy said in his book, Why Government Programs Fail. Inability to stick with what they said they would do. Why? Because there is lack of belief in their own principle. And a poorly defined target obviously is stemmed partly from doubt. There is doubt in their own principle. Why? Because they are not able to source their principle from a system that can be tested, a system that has been shown to be true. True science, history, or transcendental source. When a poorly defined target is stemmed partly from doubt, and where the lessons of history alone or some ill-conceived ideas are the basis for planning, then we cannot be certain of any degree of success. You see, a doubt leads to vagueness, hence poor policy writing and implementation. In page 11 of James Lansing's book, Why Government Programs Fail, he wrote that program failure is related intimately to guidelines and regulations written for that program's administration. They are written in response to problems which arise in program, in response to real and potential failures. So when all you do is to write a program policy that all it does is respond to problems which arise in the program itself. You are preoccupied with the wrong things. Why? Because your principle is not sourced from a bigger principle that is shown to be true. So every time you have to start from the scratch, you have to make your own, you have to input your own personality. That is why there is, change from one policy designer to another. There keeps to be change, and who loses in it? The whole country, the whole nation loses, because there is no consistency. There is no big R to source ideas from. Hello, my name is Honour.Encyclopedia. What I do with this conversation is to teach how we can source our ideas in public policy formulation and implementation, and in corporate ideology, how to source from the Trinity. And we've been able to see that there is a pattern. Everything is not amoral. It is not just there. It's a pattern that wishes to achieve a goal. And for us to follow the trend of this pattern, we are sure that it does not only lead us to success, but also gives us the energy to be able to create what we are supposed to be doing as part of the creation, to be co-creator with the ultimate creator of material universe. Thank you.